Okay, we're going to pick up with verse 23. O inhabitants of Lebanon, that makest thy nest in the cedars, how gracious shalt thou be when pains come upon thee, the pain as of a woman in travail. Watch this now. As I live, saith Yahuah, though Coniah, everybody's familiar with Coniah, right? Coniah, oh yes, this guy is very, very important. The father cut this man's seed, his bloodline off. Cut him off. All right? But guess what? What's important about Coniah is that we're now talking about that's David's bloodline. I'm just cutting it off. What do we do now? So we go back to Genesis 3:15. All right? With this whole thing with the seed of a woman. Let's tie it in. Let's tie it. Jeconiah, exactly. Exactly. As I live, saith Yahuah, though Coniah, or Jeconiah, the son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, he was the signet upon the father's right hand. Yet will I pluck thee thence from this line here. I'm going to pluck them out. Done. So how do we continue the royal bloodline? How do we continue the royal bloodline? Because everybody is saying that, listen, you know what, Joseph had sex with Mary. My question is this. If Joseph had sex with Mary, the scripture said that Joseph was a righteous man. If I was betrothed to a woman and I'm righteous now, and let's say the father, me and the woman's father said, listen, you know what? We're going to do this whole thing for 3 months. All right? Things go south. We have relations before the 3 months is up. Me being a righteous person wouldn't think to put the woman away. The righteous thing for me to do would come up, confess to the father, and say, listen, me and your daughter had relations. So you see where this is going? If he was righteous, why would he want to put her away? It's just not jiving. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. All right? So Coniah, I'm going to pluck him out. You need to know how this bloodline is going to continue. And I will give thee into the hand of them that seek your life. All right? And to the hand of them whose face thou fearest, even into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar. Okay? King of Babylon and the king of the Chaldeans. You know what? This bloodline is so important. Ben-Hadad. Remember when the king of Judah, I think we're going to read it here. Okay, I don't want to jump too fast there. Wow, because there's so much information here. There's a whole lot. Okay, let me just finish reading here. And I will cast you out, and your mother that bare you, into another country where you were not born, and you shall live. So that you should die. Right. What happens if you're a king? You have royal subjects, gold, silver, you have wives, you have concubines. When you get conquered, what happens to your possessions?
You go to the next king, right?
Yeah, the king takes your wives, he takes your children, your concubines, and everything. This is what happens. The enemy is always trying to destroy the bloodline. But again, my argument here is that this bloodline was so important, and there was royalty inside of the nation of Yashra'al. We'll look at this now. Because the scriptures clearly tells us now that we're supposed to be a nation of kings and priests. Okay. Verse 8. is this man Coniah a despised, broken idol? Okay? Is he a vessel wherein is no pleasure, meaning now that he has no offspring? Wherefore are they cast out, he and his seed, and are cast into a land which they know not? You, Coniah, your wives, your concubine, your everything now is about to go to the Babylonians. You're done. And I'm killing off your seed. And not just Coniah's seed alone. We're going to show that too. The father is not playing. You never want the father to come down on you. I would rather be an enemy to every brother and sister in this congregation than be an enemy to the father. The father plays rough. Rough. Too rough for me. Thus saith Yahuah, write this man childless. Okay, because of this man's wickedness, write this man childless. A man that should not prosper in his days, for no man of his seed shall prosper, sitting upon the throne of Dawood and ruling any more in Judah. What do we do with that now? Because the scriptures say that the Mashiyach must come through the line of Dawood. All right. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Question: is the lineage of Yahuah cursed? This is my question to the Bishop of God. I pray that everybody is paying attention. So the question is, we talking about marriages here? We talking about birthright? We talking about inheritance, heirship, the whole shebang, all up in one. But now we have a situation where David's line is cursed. So how does the Mashiyach come? Okay, let's go to the book of Matthew 1:1. How is the genealogy of Israel counted for? This is my question. Anybody know how the genealogy of Israel is counted? How's it reckoned? How's it understood? By what? By what measure or means? Israel is reckoned and counted by the seed. Now, the book of the generations of the Mashiyach, the son of Dawood, the son of Abraham. What is the first thing that you notice in Matthew, the first chapter, verse 1?
Generation of Mashiyach.
Exactly, the generation of the Mashiyach. And what else do we see there? Somebody said it. What did you say? All right. The son of David, hallelujah. That was it. The son of David and Abraham. Very, very good. David is representing David. Now, this is the throne of David that we're talking about here. We're talking about Melchizedek order. Melchizedek order. And we're talking about the book of the covenant. You see how all this is working out? Remember the covenant the father made with Abraham? Melchizedek? And even the covenant that the father made with Abraham, where we now have the smoking furnace going between the pieces? Right. This right here was a covenant of faith. All right? We have now David sitting on a throne, and this throne must continue. And we have the Mashiyach here now inside of this bloodline lineage. Okay, so that seed is very important because, again, the seed line must continue. Now, watch how this goes. Abraham begot Isaac. And let me just say this too, all right? Like I made mention last week, is that Sarah is extremely important. Extremely important. Did anybody look at the Oxford dictionary when I spoke on Eliezer being the son of Abraham? Anybody doing an investigation on that? Okay. I just wanted to make sure because, again, I don't want nobody to take my word for it. I mean, I want you to look up this information, but it is there. And so when Abraham is actually praying to the Father, when he said, I don't have, an heir, Eliezer's mother was not Shemitic. What Abraham is actually doing, he's praying for this royal bloodline to continue. And we talked about the word Sarai, meaning princess, and she was an actual literal princess coming from the land of Mesopotamia. And we now have the covenant now being made with Abraham. So in order to keep the bloodline running now, we need both bloodlines running in order to get almost like a perfect seed. And this is the reason why I brought out the thing about the movie. This particular woman now, who had her whole nation on her back, but because of her own personal feelings, she didn't want to marry King Henry VIII. But you're next in line. It is your responsibility now to bring the families together. This is what this whole thing was about, bringing families together. And I stop right there, all right? Abraham begot Isaac, and Isaac begot Jacob, and Jacob begot Judas and his brethren. And Judas begot Perez. Anybody know who Perez is? Right, because we have Perez here twice, right? So listen, we can give ourselves the benefit of the doubt, no problem, and everything like that. And I want to talk a little bit more about that a little bit later on, because again, because Yahuah put out some very good questions regarding why then wasn't the children that Judah had with his wife, in regards to those other 3 boys, why weren't they Israelites or Jews, or of the seed of Judah, being that they were his offspring? And we brought out the whole thing that they were Canaanites, though. And so that changes the whole dynamics of things. So we're trying to get to that. All right. Verse 4. And Abram begot Amminadab. And Amminadab begot Naasan. And Naasan begot Solomon. And Solomon begot Boaz of Rechab. And Boaz begot Obed of Ruth. And Obed begot Jesse. So we even see women here. These particular women have done great works in the nation of Israel, bringing forth this David line. All these women here made sacrifices for the continuation of the David line. These were these noble women. And Jesse begot David, the king of David. The king begot Solomon of her, that had been the wife of Uriah. And we know that David put Uriah on the front line and took Bathsheba. And Solomon begot Rehoboam, and Rehoboam begot Abiah, and Abiah begot Asaiah, and Asaiah begot Josaphat, who we just got finished talking about, and Josaphat begot Joram, and Joram begot Ozias. Verse 8. What we need to do, whenever you get to time, we need to look at every single last name that is mentioned in the book of Matthew. Just to make sure that everybody's on point, the book of Matthew is explaining whose line and lineage. Right, Mashiyach. David's, the whole David line, righteous Abraham and David. But what's interesting here now is that when we take a real good look at verse 8, there are 3 names that is missing from this genealogy. 3 names. Remember Coniah, all right? Let's go to 2 Kings. 2 Kings. 2 Kings, the 8th chapter. I just want everybody to know how serious this thing and Hashatan is coming down with a vengeance. And we was told this from the beginning. 8, yeah, I'm going to read 16 verse. 2 Kings, the 8th chapter, verses 16 to 17 is what I'm going to read. But remember, there are 3 names that are missing from this genealogy here. Because of the curse of Ahab, all right? So we have 2 Kings, the 8th chapter, verse 16 to 17. In the 5th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, remember Ahab now, king of Israel, Jehoshaphat being the king. That word king is so important because we talk about David's line. Being the king of Judah, Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king again of Judah, began to reign. 32 years old was he when he began to reign, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. The name that we have missing here, one of the names that we have missing here is the 2 Kings, the 8th chapter, verses 16 to 17. One of the names is, was it Ahaz? Yeah, Ahaziah. You're talking about the kings of Israel here. This, let's go to 2 Kings. Double check something here. Double check my notes here. Yeah, let's go to 2 Kings, the 11th chapter. And Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead. She rose and destroyed all the seed royal, or this royal seed. Okay, so again, we're talking about Ahaziah. Let's go to verse, let me see, chapter 12, verse 2. Just going to show you these names here. And Josiah did that what was right in the sight of Yahuah. All his days wherein Jehoiada, the priest, instructed him. But the high places were not taken away. The people still sacrificed and to burn incense in the high places. So if you get the chance, just read the whole thing. Read all 2 Kings, the 11th chapter, verse 1, and all of 2 Kings, the 12th chapter. Because the next name that we have is Jehoshaphat. J-A, the J-A, J-E. J-E-H.
O-I.
Or O-I.
A-D-A.
A. No, that's not the right, that's not the one.
Oh, I got it.
Yes, exactly. So we got J-E-H-O, O-A. S-H. That's the guy.
Oh,
2 Kings. 2 Kings. The 14th chapter, verse 1. In the 2nd year of Joash, son of Jehoazak, king of Israel, reigned Amaziah. So the next one was Amaziah. These 3 names are missing from the genealogy in the book of Matthew, the 1st chapter, when you look at verse 8. They're not there. And the reason why they're not there is because of what? The curse, right? All right. I'm going to destroy this man's seed, tonight. All right? So that's a curse. Let's get some scriptural proof. have proof, gotta have proof, gotta have proof. 1 Kings, the 20th chapter. We're almost done, Mr. Powell. But how much time we have left? That's a good evening. 38. 38. Okay, this is some hand signals here. All right, I'm not good with that. So the prophet departed. Okay, wow. You got to read 1 Kings, the 20th chapter. It is so important. So I'm just going to have to, jump in the middle of it. Listen, 37. Then this prophet, he found another man and said, smite me, I pray you. And the man smote him, so that it smited, he wounded him, the prophet. Okay, it is the prophet, right? So the prophet departed and waited for the king by the way, and disguised himself with ashes upon his face. And as the king passed by, he cried, which is the prophet, unto the king, and he said, your servant went out into the midst of the battle. And behold, a man turned aside and brought a man unto me, the prophet, and said, keep this man, if by any means he be missing, then shall your life, be for his life. Or else thou shalt pay a talent of silver. Watch what the king says. As thy servant was busy here and there, because this is a parable. We need to understand this parable. Watch what happens. And as the servant was busy here and there, he was gone. And the king of Israel said unto him, so shall thy judgment be. So the king is now, he's going to boast himself. You're telling me now that somebody gave you the responsibility of holding a man, and you went about your business doing this and that. Now the person who told you to hold this man told you now, if you was to lose this person, your life for his life, all right? Your life for his life, or pay this talent of silver. Okay, so now he hastened, which is the prophet, and he took the ashes away from his face, because he's talking to the king. And the king of Israel discerned him that he was a prophet. So just imagine, I'm a king, all right? And I now have this man come to me and give me this parable. Now, this is a prophet. I was shaking my boots because he just told me a parable. I need to understand this parable. Watch how this goes. So the king decided that this guy was a prophet, or one of the prophets. Then he said unto him, thus saith Yahuah, because thou hast let go out of your hand a man whom I appointed to utter destruction. Who was appointed utter destruction? If you're familiar with the story, because I can't go through all of it because we'll be here all night. Remember Ahab? He's supposed to destroy his whole house. His whole house is supposed to be destroyed. And he said unto them, thus saith Yahuah, because I have let go out of thy hand a man whom I appointed to utter destruction. Therefore, your life should go for his life, and your people his people. And the king of Israel went to his house heavy and despised, and came to Samaria. So this king here, which was what tribe?
Ahab king, he's king of Judah. He's got the Judah, Ahab king Israel.
Right. And so this king that the prophet is talking about what king? What tribe is, what nation is he governing?
He's got the Judah.
Northern kingdom. We'll read it, I'll show a little bit more. And the king of Israel the king of Israel. King of Israel went to his house heavy and displeased and came to Samaria. Samaria is a northern kingdom country. There is so much going on with northern kingdom and southern kingdom, with kings and princes. There's a whole lot going on with bloodline, with intermarrying. It's marvelous to see how the Father is working and how important it is for bloodline and seed to continue. Okay, let's go to some more. Let's go to 2 Kings, the 9th chapter. 2 Kings, the 9th chapter, verse 1. Watch what happens. And Elisha, the prophet, called one of the children of the prophets again. When there's a king, you have to have a prophet. The prophet keeps the king in check. All right? This is how the Father is actually speaking to the king through his prophets. All right? Make sure that nobody gets out of line. And Elisha the prophet called one of the children of the prophets and said unto him, Gird up your loins and take this box of oil in thy hand and go to Ramoth Gilead. And when thou comest hither, now this is a commission now that we have Elisha give to one of the prophets now. When thou comest there, look out there Jehu. So he's looking for Jehu, the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nimshi, and go and make him rise up from among his brethren and carry him to an inner chamber. Then take the box of oil and pour it on his head and say, Thus saith Yahuah, I have anointed you king over Israel, northern kingdom. Then open the door and flee and tarry not. Get up out of there. So the young man, even the young man, the prophet, went to Ramoth Gilead, and when he had came, behold, the captains of the host were sitting, and he said, I have an errand to thee, O captain. And Jehu said, because Jehu was a captain, unto which of all us? And he said, to thee, or you, O captain, Jehu. And he arose and went into the house, and he poured the oil on his head, and said unto him, Thus saith Yahuah of Yashra'al, I have anointed thee king over the people of Yahuah, even over Israel, northern kingdom. Now watch what happens. The Father gave Jehu, okay, he gave the prophet a commission. He's speaking with Jehu. This is what Jehu now has to do. Thou shalt smite the house of Ahab. When we talk about smiting the house of Ahab, we talk about, again, destroying this whole man's lineage. Destroying him. But again, we need for the bloodline of the Mashiyach to sit on the throne. How is that going to happen? All right? Now, this is fun. Okay. And thou shalt smite the house of Ahab, thy master, that I might avenge the blood of my servants the prophets, and the blood of the servants of Yahuah at the hand of who? And everybody know how wicked that woman was, Jezebel. But again, even though we know about Jezebel, all right, the head of the house here, I'm coming to check you first. I'm going to come and check you first because you're responsible. So we talk, what I want to always emphasize is the importance that we as men have, okay, in our relationships, making sure that everything is in one accord. Because if something is not right in your household, the first person that the Father's going to come check is you. All right? So that's the reason why you can't waver and get all emotional and all that stuff like that, because you never want to fall into the hands of Yahuah. Because if you fall into the hands of Yahuah, we see a situation where, listen, you know what? The Father can destroy your whole household. These things were written in our records for our learning, for an example, and for our understanding. Make sure you read and understand Torah. Your life depends on it. All right? So again, and the whole house of Ahab shall perish, and I will cut off from Ahab him that urinateth against the wall, and him that is shut up and left in Israel. And I will make the house of Ahab like the house of Jeroboam. And we know what happened there. And the son of Nebat, we know what happened there. And like the house of Baasha, and the son of Ahijah. The father's not playing. He'll cut you off. And the dog shall eat Jezebel in the portion of Jezreel, which means to scatter or to sow, and there should be none to bury her. And he opened the door and he fled. Then Jehu came forth to the service of his master, and one said unto him, Is all well? So the rest of the captains are asking Jehu, is everything well? Where came this madman, talking about this prophet, follow to thee? And he said unto them, You know the man and his communication. And they said, It is false. Tell us now. And he said, Jehu, thus and thus speak he to me, saying, Thus saith Yahuah, I have anointed thee king over Israel, but Ahab is king. We have a problem. All right? Then they, which are the captains, they hastened and took every man his garment and put it under him on the top of the stairs. They blew the trumpet, saying, Jehu is king. So Jehu, the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nishmi, conspired against Joram. That's the parentheses. And now Joram had kept Ramoth Gilead, he and all Israel, because of Hazael, king of Syria. But King Joram was returned to be healed in Jezreel of the wounds which the Syrian had given him when he fought with Hazael, king of Syria. Remember now, and Jehu said, If it be our mind, then let none go forth nor escape out of the city to go to tell in Jezreel. So Jehu rode in a chariot and went to Jezreel, for Jeroboam lay there. And Ahaziah, king of Judah, remember Ahaziah? He was one of the kings now that did not sit on the throne of David. The curse. All right? And there stood, where am I here? So Jehu rode on a chariot and went to Jezreel, and Jeroboam lay there, and Ahaziah, king of Judah, was down to see Joram. And there stood a watchman at the tower of Jezreel. And he spied the company of Jehu as he came and said, I see a company. And Jeroboam said, Take in horsemen and send to meet them, and let them say, Is it in peace or in shalom? So there went one on horseback to meet him, and said, Thus saith the king, Is it peace? And Jehu said, What hast thou to do with peace? Turn thee behind me. And the watchman told, saying, The messenger came to them, but he came not again. So Jehu was on a mission. Then he sent out a second on horseback, which came to them and said, Thus saith the king, Is it peace? And Jehu answered, What hast thou to do with peace? Turn thee behind me. Jehu is on a mission. And the watchman told, saying, He came even unto them and came not again. And the driving is like the driving of Jehu, the son of Nishmi, for he driveth ferociously. So he is coming full speed. He's coming to destroy. And Jeroboam said, Make ready, and his chariot, and his chariot was made ready. And Joram, the king of Israel, and Ahaziah, the king of Judah. So we have northern kingdom and southern kingdom coming together to fight against Jehu. These are bloodline children. Okay, bloodline here we're talking about. We're fighting for seed and inheritance and leadership and authority. And each of his chariots, and they went out against Jehu and met him in the portion of Nabat and Jezreel. And it came to pass when Joram saw Jehu that he said, Is it peace, Jehu? And he answered, What peace? So as long as the whoredoms of your mother Jezebel and the witchcrafts which are many. Okay? And Joram turned, because he knew what was going on. He turned his head and he fled and said to Ahaz, "This is treachery, O Uzziah." And Jehu now drew a bow with his full strength, and he smote Jehoram between his arms, and the arrow went out at his heart, and he sunk down in his chariot, and we know that he died. Then said Jehu to Bidkar, his captain, "Take up and cast him in the portion of the field of Naboth and the Jezreelite. Remember how that when I and thou rode together after Ahab, his father, Yahuah laid this burden upon him. Surely I have seen yesterday the blood of Naboth and the blood of his sons, saith Yahuah, and I will requite thee in this pact, saith Yahuah. Now therefore take and cast him in the plat of the ground according to the word of Yahuah." But when Ahaz, now the king of Judah now, who was cut off, okay, he's going to be cut off out of the bloodline here, and when Ahaz, the king of Judah, saw this, he fled by the way of the garden house, and Jehu followed after him and said, "Smite him also in the chariot." And they did so at the going up to Gur, which is by Iblim, and he fled to Megiddo and died there. And his servants carried him in a chariot to Jerusalem, okay, because he was the king of Jerusalem. They took him to Jerusalem and buried him in the sepulchre with his father in the city of David. So we're going to leave that off there. Let's now go to 2 Chronicles 8 and 1. I'm just proving all things here. That's all I wanted to do. 2 Chronicles 18 and 1. This was the story that fascinated me. Yes, 2 Chronicles 18 and 1, back in the day. Okay, watch this. Now Jehoshaphat had riches and honor in abundance, and he joined affinity with Ahab. Do you see what just happened here? That word affinity is a Hebrew word chatan. Chatan. It means to become a son-in-law, to make oneself a daughter's husband, a wife's, a father's, a wife. So he actually married into this line. Now my question is this. Make sure everybody's paying attention here. What just happened here?
Same people you were talking to. Oh, go ahead. Same people you were told to destroy.
Exactly! There's no allegiance. I told you to kill off, okay, Ahab and his descendants. But you left Ahab alive. Remember the parable that the prophet gave? There was a man, this prophet, he covered himself up in dust. He met the king and told the king the parable of, I was given a man, and this man now is no longer in my hands. It should be my life for his life. The father said, make no alliances with Ahab. Kill off his descendants. But, as we know, with riches and honor becomes the forgetfulness of Yahuah and his Torah. I told you to kill off all of his household. I don't care how good she looks. I don't care. Kill them all. That's what he said. All right? 2 Chronicles. 2 Chronicles 21. But there are alliances now. I mean, you was correct now. Marriages are about alliances here, but I wanted to stay on point here about disobedience. And that bloodline is supposed to be discontinued. That was the point that I'm trying to make. 2 Chronicles 21 and 1. Now Jehoshaphat slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David, and Jehoram his son reigned in his stead. I'm going to drop down to the 4th verse. Now when Jehoram was risen up to the kingdom of his father, he strengthened himself and slew all his brethren with the sword, and diverse also the princes of Israel. Jehoram was 32 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. And he walked in the ways of the kings of Israel, like as did the house of Ahab. So you see what's happening here now? You got to cut that line off. For he had the daughter of Ahab to wife. I told her to kill him off. He had the daughter of Ahab to wife, and he wrought that was evil in the eyes of Yahuah. I'm cutting off that seed. However, Yahuah would not destroy the house of David because of the covenant that he made with Dawood, and as he promised to give a light to him and to his sons forever. Okay. I'm going to be reading, where are we at with time? Because I'm just about done. Okay. 30 minutes? Woo! Okay. Verse, I did this a couple of years ago, but verse 16, let's get Brother Aharon to read that. Matthew's the first chapter, verse 16. Yes. The book of Matthew. Matthew. The first chapter, verse 16.
And Yahuah, Jacob got.
My fault. Yes.
And Yahuah brought forth Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom was born Yahusha, who is called Messiah.
Right, it was called the Messiah, the Mashiyach. Now, Hebrew is going to be very important, all right? Even in any regular Hebrew Bible, it's going to say the same thing, but that's not what it says. And it says that Yaakov begot Joseph, the husband of Mary. That's not what it says in Hebrew. What I'm going to be reading here is from, just to let everybody know, if you want to pick up a book, it's called the Aramaic English New Testament, which is before the Masoretic text, all right? So what we're trying to do is get the most accurate translation as possible. Huh? I didn't hear you.
Is that the color of shit that you read from?
The author is, the author of this book is, you talking about the author?
No.
And
You said the Aramaic Mashiyach.
yeah, you can also find the same there too.
Okay.
Because the word that we're going to be looking for with Joseph, just to let everybody know, in the book of Matthew and the book of Luke, we see two genealogies, right? And we need to define whose genealogy is who. In the book of Matthew, we've been talking all day. I know I'm just saying a lot, all right? But the book of Matthew is explaining whose genealogy. Right. Mashiyach, or more so, what we're trying to do here now is we're talking about Solomon. Is that right? Solomon. And this is David's line here. The Mashiyach has to come through this line. What's happening is that in the book of Matthew, you see two Josephs. Watch how Hebrew is so important. Verse 16. We have the word for Joseph here. It has the word Barak. It is designated as a protector or a guardian. So this Joseph that we see here is actually a guardian, not Joseph's, not Mary's husband. I'm going to read this for you in Hebrew too, so that words are so small. So I'm gonna need some bifocals here. Magnify this here a little bit. The word bara designates a protector, a male, or a guardian. The context of this verse determines its specific meaning. Yahusha elsewhere says which one of bara if he has a son. Obviously here, a father is intended. Bara, which is spelled G-O-W-R-A. Also applies to other forms of protector, male-type relationships, depending on the context, such as husband, son, and so forth. Ancient Aramaic of protector male-type relations, depending on the context, such as husbands. I'm going to read down here just a little bit, verse 16. This means that Joseph, in verse 16, the guardian or adopted father of Miriam, is not the same Joseph as the husband of Mary in verse 19. There's no reason for Matthew to use two different words of the same individual, whereas bara sometimes means husband, but can also mean father. The other term is Baal, which means husband, can only mean husband, again, like I said. So on the other hand, there would most definitely be a reason to differentiate the two names Joseph, one being the adopted father and the other one the husband of Mary. And the reason why we have to go that route, because everybody knows that there's a discrepancy when you look at the genealogy of Matthew and Luke. It talks about to the coming of the Mashiyach. Anybody remember how many generations?
42 of Abraham to the Messianic.
42?
Well, supposedly.
42. Ooh, boy, that's a lot. Actually, it's 14 generations. So when we're done, you can show me how you came up with 42 generations. Because Luke, Matthew, and Luke, coming up with Mashiyach, you're talking with Abraham, you're talking about 14 generations. So both Matthew and Luke would have to correspond with one another. So one Joseph is actually talking about a guardian of Mary and not actually Mary's father. And when we begin to understand names, names were, they pretty much stayed with this out of the family. And so when you see now the birth of Yahuah, there's nobody in your family by the name of John. And so again, family names are very, very important, how these names actually stayed with this out of the family, the bloodline here. Let me try to read this in Hebrew if I can read it so you can pick up this actually what's going on here. Let's read here just a little bit. Verse 16, it says, Yaakov, Ahulad. And the word Ahulad or Ahuled means child. So Yaakov, the child. Then we have the La, which means two. Yahusha, this is Joseph. Then we have the word Gabara. And when you get time, look at that word Gabara because it's in the Hebrew and you're going to find it a little bit different in the Masoretic text. And then you have Damiyam, which is David. And then you have Domidia. And then you have, which was interesting, you have the olive top. And we all know what the olive top is, right? I didn't hear you. Right, exactly. The olive top. But attached to that olive top, it has the word Yalad or Yaled. And the word Yaled or Yalad is probably, if you're dealing with the Masoretic text of the vowel pointing system, this is going to be the correct way to say it. But it has here in the Hebrew, it says that this child would be an olive top. I found that very, very interesting. You would never be able to get that from reading the English. So this child that was brought forth from Mary, this was not just any regular child. This child has the olive tav next to it. Do you have that in the British Septuagint in the Hebrew, where you have the olive tav attached to the Yaled, the child, referencing the Mashiyach? You don't have that in the British? In the Hebrew?
One that you gave me, just, it is no New Testament.
Okay, yeah, but there is a New Testament one. We look at the Aramaic Peshetta, like Zakane was talking about. So, Mr. Carr, I'm up for the questions. I know I said a lot here today, but that's about it. Yeah, that is really about it. So actually, Maury can come up next week because I was going to actually go up next week again. But we killed two birds with one stone here. And the reason why, again, I wanted to show and do this class here was to show the importance of bloodline, okay, the coming of the Mashiyach, and what these women actually did, okay, which deserves a whole lot of great honor. What these men did in being obedient to the Father. When we have guys like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and especially when you start to get into the prophets, because this is now when Israel starts to really go backwards. And these prophets now are actually putting themselves on the line for you and I. And each one of the prophets all taught, listen, we need to return back to the covenant. When we say back to the covenant, we're talking about the covenant that the Father made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We are not talking about, okay, the Levitical priesthood, because that was added because of transgressions. All right? Abraham was counted righteous because of faith. Right, so this is what we're looking for. Complete, total obedience to the Father. And if we were able to do that, that's what the whole thing is about. Because what happens a lot of times, I had to get out of it when I was young, before I came into the walk, where it was always about me and not considering the next person or the next generation. What became the pivotal point in my life was when first young lady I was dealing with, when she had my child. I was out in the streets wilding, doing whatever it is I wanted to do. But when I saw my daughter, things changed. Because now I have responsibility. This is my seed here. And I need to make sure that it's no longer about me now. It's about protecting and making sure that I secure my own. And so when I found myself now needing to now dedicate myself according to Scripture regarding my seed, because I've had conversations with many people where they abandoned their seed. This is the reason why the Scripture says, listen, can a bride forget her ornaments? Or can a woman forget her suckling? And the answer is yes. But the Father says, I will not forget you. So this whole thing is about responsibility, taking care of yours, and just being responsible. So that was like the thing that changed, the most dramatic thing that ever happened in my life was saying, listen, you know what? Somebody here, and I'm looking at this little baby, I'm saying, you know what? This baby is depending on me for everything. It's no longer about me anymore. And so this type of dedication, again, that I see that the Father has for the nation of Yashra'al, after all of the transgressions, the sins, being disobedient to the Father, he's saying, listen, you know what? I have you engraved on the palms of my hands, and I will not forget you. And so when I begin to read things like that, sometimes it gets a little sentimental for me. And even to this same day, when I read the book of Lamentations, it kind of like brings tears to my eyes, because what's happening now is that all that the Father has done for me, and I can only speak for me, everything that the Father has done for me, how can I not be totally in subjection to Him? Sometimes I just wonder, because every single thing that I have, the Father has given to me, and when He continues to do these things, I'm like, wow, you know what? I owe the Father just that much more. And this is what the prophets and the daughters of Israel was trying. When the records was left, This is what we were supposed to understand. This is what it's all about. We're supposed to be a family, a Mishpachah here. Your needs or my needs, we're working together. We're not trying to betray anybody, anything like that. This is supposed to be a family, us bringing our families together. And if we can't do it here during the rehearsals, I guarantee you, you will not make it into the land. Because remember, the scripture says, we're coming out. There's going to be a gathering. But not all of us is going to make it to the land. A lot of us is going to die in the wilderness. We're going to die. Because I guarantee you, it is not because of what I'm saying. It's because what the scripture says. As it was in the beginning, there's going to be murmurings again. There's going to be murmurings. Who set that brother up? Who set that brother up? Well, I feel that we should go this way. I feel that we should do this. I don't quite agree with you. So this type of division is not going to make it at all. So that's all that I have to get, Mr. Carter. If there's any questions, this is the time because I know, yeah, you got a question. We have Brother Haran.
Mashiyach, not Messiah, right?
Right, the word Mashiyach means anointed. Yeah, it means anointed. And so we use the definite article, the Mashiyach, because there was many Mashiachs, you know, so deliverers. I mean, Moses was a Mashiyach. Anybody who goes out and is anointed to teach the word, they're like a Mashiyach. So when we say the Mashiyach, as you know, we're talking about the ultimate sacrifice, you know, Yahusha, who the Father sent to atone for our sins. Yeah, okay. We need some questions here to kind of yes.
When you mentioned Joseph, and you mentioned the word was a provider.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you said Joseph. Now, are we talking about Joseph, the provider of Joseph Arimathea?
Okay. Joseph, yeah, in verse 16 it says.
16, right? Because I know Joseph died, Mary's first husband, right? Is that what we're referring to?
Oh, no, not in verse 16.
Okay.
Not
Now,
in
there's
verse.
a couple of Josephs too as well.
Right, exactly. There's a Joseph in the book of Luke.
Joseph Arimathea, who.
Joseph Arimathea, right? I know you're going, right? I know where you're going. Exactly.
That's why I said provide.
Right.
Because maybe you used to provide for Mary, once what's called that.
Yeah, there's some writings that after Joseph had died, Mary's first husband, then there was a Joseph of Arimathea.
Right.
And this was a rich man.
Right.
Yeah, he's a rich man. So he had pull and clout and everything like that. That's how he was able to go to Pilate and get the body down off the cross. And he had his own tomb and everything like that. And so there's
And Matthew's father's name was Joseph as well.
Right, when we go into the genealogy here, like we did, and it says, and Yaakov begot Yosef, which was the husband or the guardian of Mary. When you go into the book of Luke, I forget which book it was, it's in the book of Luke, it also mentions a Joseph. But in one lineage now you have 13 generations, and the other one you have 14 generations. And the reason why there's a discrepancy, they're saying that listen, the genealogy is not matching up, because the Joseph in Matthew's, the 16th chapter, this is talking about Joseph, which is Mary's guardian. You write the sideways, words are different. Guardian. And then there's Joseph now, the husband of Mary.
When you said guardian, I would, look at, he would be able to provide because he had money. He had Arimathea, because her being a widow now,
Right. The way that the writings go, the extra biblical writings go, is that this Mary, along with other women who had dedicated themselves to the temple, because notice is that when a woman wasn't able to conceive or she had trouble conceiving, what these women did is that they would make the ultimate sacrifice, and they would say that the firstborn child that I had, I'm going to dedicate this child to the services of Yahuah. Right, so I mean, this is the reward. I just want to thank the Father for that. So you get the word bikurim or bikor, first fruits. But the way that the story goes, as you know, is that when they turn 14, this is when the woman becomes an adult, and she's able now to take on a woman's responsibility. Now, we know in today's society that's, oh my gosh, how can you do anything like that? She's 14 years old, you're talking about her becoming a wife. So Greek, Western culture teaches against that. But again, we talk about Hebraic culture, young girls and boys, I'm not excluding anybody, but the story went down when you started getting to some of the extra biblical writings, is that from the time that a young girl is, I guess, of age to walk and talk, whatever like that, she's being groomed on how to be a wife. Men are groomed on how to be a husband. This is your sole purpose and responsibility, because this is now about the continuation of seed. And then it goes back, I didn't want to get too much into it. This whole thing with Mary and seed, when we begin to read some of these writings, is that the reason why we know that the women, the young girls married at such a young age, is because of a woman's cycle in life. By the time she's like 35 or 40, it becomes more and more difficult, okay, for her to have children. So they started at an early age. And so I use myself as an example. Like I have an aunt, okay, and I'm joking. I was joking with her. She's now about 60. She's never known a man before. I know this to be a fact. She's never known a man. And her argument is that, well, listen, you know what? I'm waiting for Jesus to give me a man. So this is her argument. So we lived in a real small country town called Statensburg, North Carolina. And I would joke with her, and I said, well, listen, the reason why the Father hasn't given you a man because you live too far down in the country. You know? And so, you know, the Father will know where you're at. So just joking with her. But I just say all I have to say now is that by the time a woman got to be a certain age, okay, the parents now would say, listen, you know what? It is now time for you to marry and to continue the house. This is what they were groomed for. But it's not like that today. And you look at it from the male perspective, and what was going on with Mary having this guardian, she was being trained to do this. It even says in these extra biblical writings is that Mary had decided that she didn't want to leave the temple, that she wanted to actually now stay. But the rest of the young girls, they left to fulfill their duties now to become brides. This is what they wanted to do. Which brought me back, as I was reading this story a while back, because now we have a situation, talking about grooming, and with Mary, we now have grown men that are 35 and 40 years old that want to be husbands, but they're still living home with their mother. So you have to be groomed properly, and how can any woman want to marry a man, okay, who's still home with mommy, okay, living in the basement, 35 years old, and they don't have a job, okay? That's not, he wasn't groomed properly. I remember a brother from the islands told me, and I'll never forget this. He said, I told my son, and he said, listen, you're a big man now. I'm not going to raise the roof, and I'm not going to drop the floor. This house is too big for both of us. You got to get out and do your own thing. You know, so one more thing, so the same thing happens with our daughters too. It comes in a time where it is the father's responsibility now to say, listen, you know what? It's time for you now to continue the house. You have to go. You can't stay here forever. So everybody has a role and responsibility now in continuing the seed. Sometimes you have to break from the nest. This even happens in nature. I seen a documentary that I'll ask you a question. I seen a documentary where it got to the point where the mother eagle could not take care of the babies anymore. It's not that she couldn't take care of them anymore, but they're getting too daggone big now. And so she took one of the babies and she dropped the baby. The baby is falling and falling and falling and falling. I'm like, oh man, what's going to happen? Then all of a sudden the baby, and then he takes off and starts to fly. I mean, it's like, hey, he can explain that because he raised pigeons. Okay, so he knows the whole thing that, listen, you know what? I have a nest here, and he gets to the point where, listen, you know what? You can't stay in the cage no more. It's time for you to go ahead and do your own thing. The mother goes out, I guess the mother goes out with the babies, teaches them the whole routine and stuff like that, and so forth.
It's even like with, when I was sharing with you with my German Shepherd, it got to a point now where, okay, you can't suck the teeth no more.
Yeah.
Because you're biting me, you're too big.
Right.
You gotta get out on your own, you gotta eat your own food.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. We can't keep fighting for the big chicken. Yeah, so, we can't do that. So,
But I was going to say that this like the emancipation between the child being emancipated from the parents, it's predominantly, I believe, from a Western society because I know in my country, particularly with a woman who doesn't have a husband, like if she's a widow or if she's never got married or something like that, and she has a son or kids or daughters or children, some kids never leave their parents. They stay with their parents. So if they never got married, they stay with their parents.
right, but you know what's important? It gets back again now to continuing the seed. Now, the seed must continue, but he can also take care of the mother. This is the reason why I didn't get a chance to go into it today, but a lot of times when you start to see a king, it makes mention of the mother. What the king does now is that he protects the mother, even though he has his own